Okay, so for my presentation today, I will use remote sensing to demonstrate two projects I have been working on in the past years. One is about crop health, the other is about soil health. So similar as the ecosystem health or crop health, soil health, these are very general or very broad terms. So we need to something like indicators to quantify, to better understand these health conditions. So for the crop health, the crop I worked on is the blueberry, and the indicator is Scotch virus infection. So similar as other crops, there are also virus affect the blueberries. For the soil health, as a topic or indicator I selected is the crop residue. So that may be not a direct soil health indicator, but for sure the crop residues can influence the soil health. So I will focus talking about these two projects I worked on with more details. But I will also introduce a bit more the potential applications of remote sensing for different applications for the crop health, for soil health. Maybe I have not worked on all these topics, but just to provide you some ideas for you to understand and see if possibly the remote sensing technologies may be useful for your projects. I will also talk about the landscape level ecosystem health evaluation. The topic is fragmentation. So the first, the crop health, monitoring blueberry plants and Scotch virus. So this is one project I collaborated with the BC Blueberry Council and the Ministry of Ag. So the concern in the blueberry industry is the Scotch virus. So this virus was firstly found in BC in 2000, and after a couple of years, now it's widespread to the entire province. So as you can see on these photos, the one on the left, that's a healthy bush. The photos on the right, these are infected bushes. So we can see the symptoms like passive leaf blighting. So these are symptoms of the Scotch virus infection. So one kind of feature of the Scotch virus, it can spread by the aphids. So spread from one bush to another bush. So similar idea, it can also spread from one field to another field, one region to another region. So let's say if your farm is pretty healthy, but if there are infected bushes in your neighbor's farm, so the virus can still spread into your farms. So that's why it is very important to detect these infections as early and then take timely actions, such as have the aphid control to remove the infected plants. So basically to reduce the spread as much as possible. And then the farmers or the growers can also save the resources, no matter how much more fertilizer or pesticide the growers to put on the infected bushes, that will still not increase yield. So as you can tell from the photos here, so if infected by Scotch virus, the yield will reduce significantly. And the growers, they can also consider to submit the insurance claim as early, not necessary to wait until the late growing season and then deal with insurance. So it is very important to detect the Scotch virus infection as early. Why use remote sensing for the detection? So one can go to the field and show here, go to the field to check each bush and see if there are any infection symptoms. But for sure, that's very labor intensive and time consuming, as we can tell. Berry farms are pretty large. So using remote sensing, it could be more efficient if we get images from the drones or the satellites, and then the images cover the entire field shown here, and then we can apply some models to identify the infected bushes and the healthy bushes. So eventually we can estimate the percentage of the infection. So maybe 0% or maybe 10% or 50% of the total bushes infected. So that's the spatial analysis. So if we can collect images for different years, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, and this year, and then potentially we can monitor the temporal change, such as originally from 1% and increased to 10%, 20%. And also the spread patterns can be monitored on such images. So that's the background for this project. More details. Our study areas, one in Pat Meadows, the other in Abbotsford. We conducted field surveys in 2002 and showed here we collected GPS points for each infected bush. And we also evaluate the severity levels. As you can see, the one on the left, lower severity, the one on the right, much higher severity. They have different colors. So more, the one on the left is kind of still green, but the one on the right, kind of yellowish or reddish. So use these different colors are very important for our remote sensing classification. Now the drones. We use different drones for different farm fields. We also want to understand the kind of the contribution or the performance for different drones. So maybe many of you have noticed or see the flights or the multi-rotors, the ones on the left, but it's less popular to use the fixed wings. However, we have access to the fixed wing drones, so we also fly it, trying to understand its advantage and disadvantage. So the fixed wings, it flies quicker, so it can save the time. However, the disadvantage is the image collected could have lower spatial resolution. So basically, there are trade-offs using these two types of platforms. I will quickly show you a video I took before the flight, so you can get some ideas how the fixed wings can be utilized. Yeah, so it's kind of more efficient to use the fixed wing drones to fly for large farms. So the photos at the bottom, the two other drone images we collected, the one on the left covering entire field, the one on the right, these are the zoom in. So we can clearly see different bushes. So maybe you can also see these are different, they have different colors, such as these bushes are more green color, the ones left more yellow color. So indicating different health conditions of the bushes. So we collected image with different spatial resolutions from 0.4 to 10 centimeters. So we want to understand which spatial resolution is kind of the optimal resolution. Because if we collect very high resolution, such as 0.4, we need to fly the drones quite low, closer to the ground. That will take much longer time to cover the entire field. If we collect the 10 centimeters, so we can finish the flight much quicker, but resolution may be not enough to capture the virus infection features. So there's some trade-off there. So we want to figure that out and see which spatial resolution is kind of optimal for observing the infection. So this is also one consideration. If you apply drones for your project, you need to decide how high you want to fly drones and what's the spatial resolution you need for your research. Now the classification modeling. So we tried different machine learning and deep learning models. I will not talk lots of details here, but some interesting techniques. So for your information, using the drone technology and also one techniques named structure from motion, we can extract pretty high accuracy and high resolution digital elevation model, DEM. So DEM for sure is very important for the crop management and soil management. So using DEM, we extracted the bushes. So basically we filtered out the grasses and soils and only focus on the bushes. And then we developed classification models. So here, these numbers, all the points, these are the training sites we collected on the ground. And then using the models, we generated some preliminary results, showed here, the lower right corner. So here, the healthy, the green color indicates healthy bushes, yellow color indicates the infected bushes. So using this map, we can easily see the distributions and also the percentage of the infection. So such information is very important for the growers to take actions, how to deal with such serious infection. So this is one project I have been worked on in the past 1 year also. Now I will talk more applications of remote sensing for different crop health. So as you can understand, crop health is a very broad term. There are different indicators can evaluate the crop health. So some indicators such as leaf area index that is related to the crop density, chlorophyll content, and shown here. So in the early season, April, middle season, June, so there are clear different spatial and temporal patterns of chlorophyll content. Chlorophyll is a pigment that controls the productivity and eventually influence the production, the biomass, and also yield. So if we can observe such spatial temporal patterns of chlorophyll, and then why some areas have higher chlorophyll, while other areas have low chlorophyll content. So there must be reasons, maybe related to fertilizer, nutrient in the soil, or maybe soil moisture. So the growers, so we need to understand the reasons behind such patterns. So similar idea, using the drone images, we can also generate the yield map, such as this researcher, they fly drones and created this potato yield map, and then they can understand the potential yield as well as the reasons that may influence the yield. Another application is temperature, water stress of the crops. So if we take one temperature image photo on the ground and show here, so some crop areas they have higher temperature, some areas have lower temperature. So if the crops they have water stress or maybe disease stress or maybe some other disturbance, so their temperature can change, maybe a little bit, maybe sometimes pretty significant temperature change, such as higher temperature if with the water stress. So if we can perform that on the ground, similar idea, we can upscale to the landscape or farm level. This researcher, they showed here, they fly drones in May, June, and July, basically using the thermal sensors and attach on the drones, and then they can take such temperature map. We can clearly see the increase of the temperature, general pattern from May to June and July. Also within one image, within one season, we can also see the spatial pattern of the temperature, such as in the July image showed here. Some hot spots, these areas, they have higher temperature. So there must be reasons for higher temperature, maybe water stress, maybe disease. So the farmers, they can go to that spot and double check what happens there, and then what kind of treatment they can do to deal with such different temperature. So that's the water stress. So next, the nutrient status, disease, and pest detection. So I mean, quite a few other speakers already talked. The nitrogen management is very important for the crop health and also for the environmental conservation. So one study conducted by JOB. So they fly drones and to use the drone image to understand the nitrogen status diagnosis, the different nitrogen standards basically. So here on this image, different colors indicate different status. Could be nitrogen optimal, could be nitrogen deficiency, or maybe nitrogen surplus. So with such a pattern, such an image, so the researchers or the farmers, they can quickly get ideas which areas may need more nitrogen, which areas may need less nitrogen, and then they can take actions accordingly, not necessarily to apply nitrogens like for the entire farm. So that's also the meaning of the precision farming. And for sure, the pest detection, which is similar as the disease or the virus infection. So after the pest kind of generate more symptoms for this patch showed here. So they will have different colors. So the remote sensing image, they can reflect or capture these different colors, and then we can generate a map. So which areas got the pest, and then we can take correct actions to remove the pest. And another important practice in the crop management is the weed management. So if we took a photo on the ground, so that's wheat, these are the corns. So we can use computer vision or some other techniques to differentiate the crops and also the weeds. Similar idea, we can upscale to the farm and show here. So the green color indicates the crops, red color indicates the infection of the weeds. And then the farmers, they can apply treatment only to the needed area, weed areas, not to the entire farm. Okay, so these are a few application examples that use remote sensing to understand the crop health. So now I will talk about the soil health, one project I worked on. So to use remote sensing to map the crop residues. So clearly the crop residue are the nutrients, let's say carbon, nitrogen in the crop residues can go back to the soil and then contribute to the soil nutrient. So, and also the residue can help the soil reduce soil erosion. So for sure, the crop residue are critical for the soil health. But in one farm or at regional scale, for sure, some areas have more residues, or some farms maybe have more residues, some other farms may have less residues. So how to map that, and then we can have better understanding the spatial distribution or the pattern of the crop residue. So our study area in Camrose, we selected 3 fields in Camrose, and then we conducted field survey. And so here we took ground photos. You can clearly see the residue there, and then we manually collected the residues, and then measure the weight. And so here, and eventually we want to correlate such weight data with the remote sensing data, and then we can map the percentage and also maybe the biomass, the weight for the residues for the entire farm. So remote sensing techniques, we collected drones. Here we also used a very advanced sensor, that's the hyperspectral, because the residue features are very sensitive to the middle infrared range. We also task one satellite. So basically, we submit a work order. So the satellite company, they will arrange the satellite to fly over our study area at a specific time window. So that's that's quite costly, but we got the image as we want. So here the drone and satellite images. The one on the left, this is a drone image, so we can clearly see different colors. So the bright color kind of indicates the crop residue. The dark color kind of indicate more bare soils. So we got the image, but unfortunately, because of the weather, so you can see the cloud. So the image quality is not great. However, luckily, some of our fields, they are not contaminated by the cloud, so we can still use this image. And then some modeling work. So here, that's the one ground photo showing both the soils and also residues. You see, these are the residues. And we use the computer techniques to differentiate the residues and soils of the ground photo. And then we'll get the percentage data for that site. So maybe 50% or 70% residues cover the soil. And then we extracted different image features, NDVI or some other features. And eventually we generated this preliminary result map. So the red color indicates the crop residue, the green color indicates the soils. So we can see the distribution pattern of the residues and also get understanding of the biomass and the weight of the residue. So in the next step, we'll try to quantify the residues and maybe also to estimate the carbon, nitrogen in the residues and see how that will contribute to the soil health. So next, I will introduce more like applications of remote sensing for the soil health evaluation. So you can get some ideas if the remote sensing technology can potentially contribute to your work. So the first very popular topic, the soil carbon mapping. So theoretically, if we have the drone images, satellite images together with data, the carbon data we collected on the ground from soil samples and lab analysis, all using the technique Sean just mentioned yesterday, using the middle infrared spectroscopy to get some spectral signals of soil, which can also estimate the soil carbon quantitatively. Using either lab or the middle infrared spectroscopy, we can get the carbon data to correlate with the image data, eventually generate soil carbon map and showed here. So we can see the spatial patterns of the distribution, and then the farmers, they can take actions how to better manage the soil carbon. So I put a question mark here because I'm using different remote sensing technologies, using kind of popular technologies or very advanced remote sensing technologies, so that will generate different accuracy. And on the farms, if the soil is covered by the residue or maybe covered by the crops, so these are the challenges that can limit the accuracy of the estimation of carbon. So that's the carbon mapping. The next soil moisture, temperature. So, under the climate change, sometimes the drought or the heavy rainfalls may happen. So this will affect the soil moisture, the soil temperature, and eventually affects the crop health. So using the thermal features or the soil sensors, we can generate soil moisture maps. So this is one example. The researchers used the soil image to generate soil moisture map on a quite large spatial scale. A similar idea using a thermal sensor to mount on a drone and then generate soil temperature map. And so here we can clearly see the temperature difference between different farms and also within one farm, one field. So there are also different soil temperatures. So there must be some reasons. So maybe more soil moisture, maybe more vegetation. So there should be some reasons for the higher or lower temperature. And then after figuring out these influencing factors, and then we can better manage the soils. So another micro terrain. For sure, the terrain is very important factor, influence the soil health and also influence the crop growth. So here, that's one study I did quite a few years ago. Using drone technology, I created digital elevation model and 5 centimeter spatial resolution, so very high. And then using this DEM, generate area solar radiation map. So this solar radiation kind of influence the early growth of the crop, which is one conclusion we found in this study. And also using DEM, generate wetness index, kind of which area likely will have higher soil moisture, which area likely will have lower soil moisture. And then we can this map correlate with the yield or growth or the crop growth map and see if really the wetness or really the soil moisture is the major factor limiting or contributing to the crop growth. The soil erosion or the soil stability. So using the terrain data, we can map the risk of the soil erosion. Using the image collected from different months, different years, we can potentially also detect the erosion happened in different fields. Another interesting study, so dairy farms, so such as for the manure piles, using drone images or satellite images, potentially we can map such manure piles and also estimate the volume. So another important topic potentially can be worked on with remote sensing is greenhouse gases. So basically, and so here some other researchers, they mounted the sensors to measure the PM10 or the carbon dioxide on the drones, and they fly drones into the air to measure the PM10 carbon dioxide or other greenhouse gases around a dairy farm, and then they can understand how much greenhouse gases generated from such dairy farms. Okay, so these are some other soil health related works that can be done with remote sensing. So lastly, I will quickly introduce one project about the landscape fragmentation. That's one essential progress in the ecosystem. So that's also one topic I have been talking with Shabtai, Kirsten, and Brad, and see if this can be one project for the living lab. So here's the image on the left. That's one satellite image showing one small region in Oxford. That's collected in 2014. We can see different farmland patches, bare soil patches, and also tree lawns. So if using the landscape ecology knowledge, we can simplify such pattern into landscape elements, use patches, matrix, or corridors to represent the features on the remote sensing image. And then we can generate different landscape matrix and show here, such as area, density, shape matrix, or connectivity matrix to quantitatively to describe the fragmentation. And then we can have a better understanding how fragmentation happens or influence the ecosystem or influence the biodiversity, wildlife. So this is one image collected in 2014. So here is another image collected in 2022. So you can see clearly lots of changes happened in the past 8 years. So if I go back, so that's 2014 image, this is 2022 image. So we can see lots of changes on this landscape and also some disturbance happened. And then we can redo this fragmentation analysis and see how the fragmentation happened in the past 8 years and how that influenced ecosystem health. So then also a temporal analysis. So here is another example of temporal analysis conducted by researchers from University of Alberta. So they maps the land covers in 2000 and also land covers in 2012. And then they compare the two land cover maps and to understand the expansion of agricultural land. So basically how much grassland, forest land, and shrubland converted to the agricultural land in this 12 years. So this is also one interesting map. We can see lots of changes on northeast of Edmonton and also northwest of Calgary. So this information could be useful for the government for management purposes. So next one. So the one on the left, that's land cover classification. The one on the right, this is the crop type classification. The idea is the same, just classify different features to different classes. So here, different colors we can see indicate different crop types, wheat, barley, alfalfa, or others. So if we get one image last year, one image this year, if we detect a change, so we can possibly find the rotation. So how the rotation performed in the past year, which crop rotate to another crop, such as from wheat to rice, from wheat to vegetable. So these rotations potentially can also be mapped. So lastly, I would like to quickly summarize the advantage of the remote sensing. So it is pretty powerful, but I will also introduce some limitations of remote sensing. So advantage such as spatial coverage from small to large, from country level to the regional or even global level. So for different research purposes, we can select images correspondingly and repeated data collection. So from daily to yearly, decadal. Again, for different projects, such as for the crop monitoring, we may need weekly or monthly data. For the land cover change detection, we may need yearly or decadal data. And retrieval of different ecosystem features, so crop, soil features are introduced a lot, and also water, such as eutrophication, water pollution. So if water bodies have different colors, so they can also be mapped using remote sensing and then contribute to the fertilizer management, contribute to the riparian or ecosystem conservation. Image collected by different platform sensors more and more available. So we can, in the recent years, probably you also noticed drones available. There are also different sensors available. So thermal sensor, LiDAR sensor, radar sensor. So using different sensors, we can get a more data set to understand the crop health and soil health. So also importantly, some limitations for the remote sensing is powerful, but feature lots of limitations. So it cannot provide all the information we need, such as for the soil, microbiological features, the fungi, bacteria, such features will be very challenging to be mapped using remote sensing. And image collection limited by weather. If you remember, the image I collected in cameras that's contaminated by the cloud. So similar idea. Maybe today is not too bad, but in the next few days. So here in lower BC, there will be lots of raining and snowing. So during these days, it will be very challenging to collect the satellite image. So some of the techniques very expensive, such as advanced sensors, such as the hyperspectral sensor will be very expensive. If we also want to collect the commercial, very high spatial resolution satellite image, such as 15 or 30 centimeters, so very high resolution, that will be pretty expensive. Also, if we want to cover a large area, so we need to collect lots of data, and that will generate large volume of data and also large computational load. So will be difficult for the storage and processing. And quickly, would like to thank the founders of this project, growers of the farms, and also my collaborators from the industry, from the Ministry of Ag, and also from Blueberry Council, from AFC, and many others. Okay, that's my presentation. Maybe I used more time than I should be, but anyway, thanks a lot for your time. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I appreciate you giving us such a thorough overview, because I know that there's been interest in how this could be integrated using these technologies in the BC Living Lab. And I think it's also really relevant for the Ministry of Agriculture and their interest in collecting more data. And also we should recognize a couple of people that are involved in these projects are also in the room. Are there any questions for me before?
Yeah, I had a question. If no one else does, I can't see if anyone else is jumping in. So, yeah, I do. First of all, I really enjoyed it. There was just a ton of stuff in there. But the question I had was about the greenhouse gas measurements, and this has historically been done actually in Ag Canada or by Ag Canada by Ray Desjardins using airplanes with manned airplanes. And that work has not gone on for a while. And I just wonder to what extent that can be taken over by the drones, if the equipment is light enough, and because that work was very important in validating the emission inventories for the greenhouse gas, ammonia, and other things.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I also put a question mark here because this is not a job I did. So I'm not quite sure about the accuracy of this work, but seems they published the papers and maybe indicates this research is promising. So, I mean, if the sensors for measure the greenhouse gas, for measuring carbon dioxide, methane, or other gases are light enough, so they can be mounted on the drones, and then we can fly drones into the air, and then we can take the measurements. So if that will basically depend on the sensors. If the sensors are small, light enough, and then possibly we can do that with the drones.